Alrighty, in this video, what we're going to do is we are going to handle a couple cases of routing. So, the way the router is currently set up, it's not really integrated at all in our system, right? It's just kind of there, and it kind of instantiates the components based off the URL, does rowdy type things. But it doesn't actually respond to any of the things that we will do or the actions that we send through the user interface. So we have a couple problems. The first problem is if we go ahead and do a refresh here, and we're on the lobby, we don't have a lobby join event being sent out, meaning the server will not know what page we're on. We need to indicate to the server if we're on the lobby screen or if we're on the game screen or if we're on whatever other screen you might want to add. So that's the first problem. Same is true for a game. If I went into a game, we're not going to get a game join event. We're not going to ever join the game. So we need to address that. Second problem is, if I go ahead and hit join game, we get a join game request. That's all working just fine. But we do not get a switch in the route. Once we join the game and we get a join game success message, we don't get sent to that appropriate route. And that's also a problem. Like, you could definitely hook the join game button into a link. That React router has this link component that you could use, and we could definitely use that. But I'm not going to, and here's the reason why. If I go ahead and log in, and I hit create game, what I want to have happen is I want that create game request to go to the server. I want the server to create the game, and then I want the server to tell or to notify the client, hey, this game is created, you're now going to be joining it. So I want the server to also be able to control what page we're on. The final problem is a server reconnect. So imagine you lose your internet connection and then you reconnect to the server. And when you reconnect to the server, it's going to need to be notified if you are in the lobby or if you're in a game. It needs to know if you're joining the lobby to give you the lobby view and all the messages in the games, or it needs to know if you're in a game, in which case it'll send you the game state. So we need to address those things, and we're going to address those things in this video. All right. We're going to start off by creating some client-side actions. So these are actions that are only going to apply to the client. And I'm going to start off by defining some constants. There won't be actions quite yet. Then we'll create an action. And the constants that I'm going to define are going to reflect the state we are in our connection to the server. We need to know, are we connected? Are we disconnected? Are we reconnecting? And so on. So that, for example, you could put a message saying, we have disconnected from the server, blah, blah, blah. So we need to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say export const connection connected equals connection connected. Export const connection connecting equals connection connecting. Export const connection reconnecting equals connection reconnecting. And export const connection disconnected equals connection disconnected. Now we need two events, or two actions. First action is going to be export const app connection set equals app connection set. Oh, export const, not export. Export makes no sense. Again, with me talking and typing at the same time, sometimes I type what I'm saying. Next up, we're going to do the action factory, which is app connection set, which will take one parameter, and the parameter will simply be connection, with the type of app connection set, and then simply doing connection. Now, actually, I ran into this earlier when I was putting this video series together. At first, I used the word status. I was like app connection status set or something like that, and then I had this variable, this property named status. And could you think for a second why that might be problematic? Well, the reason is in our actions, there are two properties that are kind of special and hooked into by the rest of the system, status and type, meaning you cannot have a property on your action called status or type because the system will get really confused because the way I built the system, those two are special. Kind of think of them like reserved properties. Next up, let's do export const app reconnected, or app connection reconnected. And this action will be sent, not surprisingly, when we perform a reconnection. And a reconnection is different from a connection. So, you know, we can have a connection, but when we disconnect and reconnect, we need to be notified that we got disconnected and then reconnected successfully. So I'm going to say app connection reconnected for my action factory. And he won't take in any parameters because he just has to expose the type of action connection reconnected. And those are my events. Or actions, rather, that I'm going to add in this video. So let's go ahead and jump into our App Store and actually put together the dummy sort of pretend observables. They're going to be real observables, so we'll be able to hook up the client, but we're not going to hook them up to anything yet because we're not yet connecting with Socket.io. So I will have to go ahead and here up at the top, I'm going to import observable from react.js. I'm also going to import behavior subject. And then on my connection, I'm going to say this dot connection status, probably just connection. This connection equals new behavior subject. I'm going to pass an a app or connection connected. So we will just, our dummy connection observable will just say we're connected every time we connect to it. And then I'm going to do app.reconnected. And I'm simply going to set this to observable.empty. So it's not going to do anything yet, but we will hook this up into Socket.io later. Now, before we go about actually hooking this up with React Router, there's one more thing I want to do. And that is, inside of my game, I want to handle the game join and game create events and kind of have them be say that they were successful. Because right now we just send the request of game join and game create, but nothing happens because we're not hooked into it. So I'm going to put in some dummy handlers for that. We already have a dummy handler for lobby join, which simply will immediately emit the fact that we joined. But for our game, we got to do that here. So I'm going to say what am I going to do? I'm going to say dispatcher dot on request. That's important. And I'm going to pass in an object, and I'm going to say a dot game. Let's do game create first of action. And game create is simply going to say dispatcher dot success or succeed action, followed by dispatcher dot succeed a dot game join action.gameID. So we're just kind of pretending that, so the server, when we create a game on the server, it's going to say that we successfully created the game, but then it's also going to say, hey, you are the owner of this game, you have to immediately join it. So these are the sequence of events we're going to receive from the server when we create a game. Next up, let's go ahead and handle a.gameJoin. Game join is going to be pretty simple. All we're going to do is say dispatcher.success or succeed action. So we're just going to say, anytime you try to join a game, we're going to consider that to be a success. All right, so now let's handle the case of, so if I come over here and refresh. So if you want to take a look at the code for right now, you can pause the video. Otherwise, let's go ahead and move on. If I log in and hit create game, now we get a game create request, a game create success, and then a game join success. So what I want to do is anytime a game join success happens, including the times we hit join game and get a game join success, I want to navigate to the game page. But I'm going to have to do this programmatically through the React Router API. So we're going to handle that up at the top level component, which is components app, and it's specifically, it is the app container. So on the component will mount, the first thing I have to do is I'm going to have to get a reference to our dispatcher. So in my object deconstruction here on the context, I'm going to say services : dispatcher. So we'll extract that out. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this subscribe on dispatcher.onSuccess money, because it's an observable, a.game join, followed by an action, and we're going to go into an anonymous function. Now we will have to import the actions as a, so we'll do that here at the top. I'm going to simply say import star as a from .. action. Now, we have a slight problem here. Let's actually make this a little bit cleaner. There, I like that more. I have a slight problem here. And that is, it's not going to become very apparent until later, but it will become important. And that is, if we land on a game, so if we were sent a URL that /game/x, I want the game component to make a join game request, and then so that'll notify the server. Okay, we're on this page. We need to join this game. We need to be aware of what the state of the game is. But the problem with that is that when we successfully join the game, we will receive a game join success event. Now the problem with that is when we're already on that page, we send the game join request, we get a success, then the app container is going to pick that up and then re-push on the same URL and cause a little bit of messed upness with our pathing. So what I have to do is I have to determine if we already are on the path that we're going to target. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say const path equals, and I'm going to use a template string, /game/ and then in a template string variable, action.gameID. Then I'm going to say if path equals router.location.pathname, then simply return. Otherwise, say router.pushPath. Now, ESLint is helpfully reminding me that I forgot to import the router. So where does the router come from? Well, we can. The router is the major component in React Router. It's the primary API service for React Router, and we can take a look at where it comes from by opening up our React developer tools and clicking on our app container, and we see that it comes from the props of router. And so what we do is to get a reference to that in our component will mount. I'm going to do that up here underneath my deconstruction of the context. I'm going to say const router equals this props. And that'll give me access to the router. The router is also accessible from the context as well. If they might remove, so it's kind of redundant. It's available from a context. It's available from props. They might remove one or the other at some point. So you guys should be on the same version of React Router that I am on if you use the proper packaged JSON file. But if you are trying to upgrade React Router to a newer version, you might want to check the new way that you access the router. Just a heads up. But in this case, this will work for us. So yeah, so this should be pretty straightforward. We're simply subscribing to the onSuccess game join. We're making sure we're not already on the path. And if we're not, then we push it onto the router. And this will navigate us to the appropriate location. So now let's do the same thing for the lobby. This subscribe, and I'm going to say dispatcher.onSuccessMoney, a lobby join, comma, action. Actually, we don't need to get the action out of that. And then let's break this up over here. And then I'm going to say if router location path name equals / Actually, this isn't going to change anything. I'm just going to, I like being consistent with my conditionals. So I'm going to do if router location path name equals path here, and if I'm going to have the router location path name on the left-hand side of the equality operator. That's just you know, a style thing. And so if we're already on the root path, then return. Otherwise, router.push /. Okay, so with this all put together, we should already see some of our desired behavior. So take one last look at this file, because you're not going to see it again. And let's go ahead and move over to this. Now if I click on... oh, I'm getting an error. What error am I getting? Cannot file... I misspelled actions. Actions has an S at the end. You guys probably caught that. So with that out of the way, open up my console again. And if we click on a game, check that out. What's going on here is we are submitting the request, we're getting a success, and then this code is executing right here, and we're getting a new path. If I hit the back button and go into login and go into create game, the same thing happens. Although we get a game of undefined because my, I can actually fix that real fast. In my create game here, my game join, I'm saying action.gameID, which doesn't make any sense on a game create. I don't know why I did that. Let's just say game join 42. It doesn't matter either way, honestly. But now if we log in and hit create game, now we get to game 42. So that's working fantastically. So if the server ever says, hey, you joined a game, what's going to happen is the server, the client is going to pick that up in the app component and push us over to the game. So now we have two more things to do. So let's start with the lobby. Now in the lobby, in the component will mount, the first thing that I have to do is get a reference to the app. And what I'm going to do here, so I added a reference to the app in the context from the stores. I'm going to subscribe to us being reconnected. So I'm going to say this.subscribe app reconnected. We're not going to be able to test this quite yet, but we will be able to later. App reconnected goes into this.request, not this.dispatch, but this.request, a.lobby join. Then I'm going to, at the end of this, I'm going to say this.request a.lobby join. So what this will do is the second that the lobby is mounted, we are going to tell the server we want to join the lobby. And in any case that we get reconnected, disconnected and reconnected again, we're going to send the same request saying we want to join the lobby. So now if I come over here and refresh, we do indeed get a lobby join request and a lobby join response. Now, unfortunately, I am still getting some of the behavior that I was talking about earlier. And this is a new tab that I loaded localhost 3000 with. If I hit the back button, notice how I don't go anywhere. I'm still on the lobby. And the reason for that is I had a slight issue, you guys probably already caught, slight issue with my path name. Path name is lowercase n. So now, if I do that and open up a new tab and load it and hit the back button, I get sent back to my home screen on the browser. So make sure that you have path name as lowercase p, lowercase n. All right, we're going to wrap this video up with the game. So for game, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do component will mount on our game container. I'm going to say const stores app equals this context. Then I'm going to say const params equals this props, which will give us the route parameters. And then const gameID equals parse int params.gameID. Then I'm going to say this.subscribe app.reconnect or reconnected. And it's going to be this.request a.gameJoin gameID, which I know we haven't imported a yet. And then I'm going to say this.request a.gameJoin gameID. So I'm doing the exact same thing that I did before. The only difference is I'm extracting the gameID parameter from the router. Let's go ahead and import our actions. Import star as a from /actions, not action. Now, when we hit a game, we should immediately get a game join request. So take one last look at that code, and then I'll verify that it's working. So game ID 1, whoops. Game ID 1, let's open up our dev tools. And we do indeed see a user game join request and a game join response. And if I click on game join, you'll notice that we get 2 game join requests and 2 game join responses. I'm not going to worry about that. And the reason we get 2 is, first of all, this join game button will submit a join game request. Then when we navigate to this component, we will get another request. I don't care about that. We could handle it with checking to see if we're currently in a game and blah, blah, blah. Just a lot of, checks. I don't want to worry about it. Instead, I'm just going to have the server say, if you request joining a game that you already joined, just do nothing. And that'll make that problem go away and make it very easy to handle without adding any additional conditionals. Additional conditionals. That's fun to say. Anyway, I think that wraps this video up. We now have proper routing. So now we can move on to actually implementing the actual game board, game options, and all that fun stuff. And we'll see you guys in the next video.